What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the College Underdogs Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Smith. Today, we've had some breaking news as it pertains to the American Athletic Conference. I'm sure if you're listening or watching this, you probably already know. But if you do not, Commissioner Mike Aresco has announced his retirement, which will be effective May 2024. So essentially at the end of this, I view it as the end of this current school year, athletic calendar, I guess you could say. And got some other stuff. Going to give a quick hoops update, portal update, coaching carousel. And then if we've got time, I'll look at just do a quick overview over bowl season. So much has happened over the weekend, and it's like this week I've sounded off on the CFP committee. Tulane seemed to have zeroed in on a coach, and I can't remember what it was on Tuesday, but it just seems like each day there's been a new, it was the proposal of a new subdivision in Division I football. So haven't even had a chance to really take in and discuss bowl season. And, past 2 years, I have typically done a Bowl Mania episode. What I might do this year, given the audience and the new sort of direction everything has gone this summer, is mainly do one focused on the Group of Five, the American Bowls and some of the other. There's a couple good G5, P5 matchups this bowl season. Unfortunately, bowl season kind of is what it is nowadays with opt-outs and coaching changes and the transfer portal. So you just never really know who you're going to get. But on paper, at least as far as the teams that are matched up, there's some good ones. And if I have time, I'll touch on it today. But if not, I'll definitely probably do some sort of Bowl Mania episode, maybe next Thursday before, just before bowl season officially kicks off, which will be next Saturday. But starting off, little hoops real quick. This week, FAU had a heartbreaking loss, man, to Illinois. They played them so tough, fought hard. I think if you watch that game, you really see that, man, this FAU team, they're for real. And I see why. Let me say it this way. You see a team that has the potential to do what they did last year. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to make a Final Four run, because once March begins, man, anything can happen. All bets are off. But this is a solid, really good basketball team. And as far as the American Conference is concerned, we need them to be good. I think a couple of other teams, in addition to Memphis, who I'll talk about next, but I think a Tulane, a Wichita State, can one of those kind of sneak in as a third, dare I say fourth bid. I'm not as super tapped in with basketball yet, obviously, with still trying to catch everything with football and staying in the loop there. I'm watching, it's kind of like I'm watching with one eye while I'm, mainly focused on the other things. But I did watch FAU Illinois. I did watch Memphis VCU last night. Memphis got a big win over VCU in overtime at VCU. I really hope that sooner than later that matchup will be a conference game. But with the news I mentioned at the top of this show, we'll see. And that's what I want to talk about as far as with the new commissioner and what mindset they need to bring to the conference. But yeah, so as far as basketball is concerned, I know this weekend there's some good matchups. I think Tulane has Mississippi State, Wichita State. I think they play one of the Dakota schools. I feel like there was another good matchup. Oh, and SMU played last night. It was a late one I fell asleep on, but they had Arizona State. I just thought about that. They lost by 2. Who is this other one? No. Yeah, never mind. I mean, Duke, Charlotte, Florida State, South Florida. That's kind of the weekend lineup. UAB, Arkansas State, South Carolina, East Carolina. So obviously, as we continue to get further away from football season, now there's always something to talk about between coaching changes, transfer portal, and realignment. This will sort of be a year-round. Football will be a topic of discussion. But I should say as we get closer to March, the basketball stuff will start to heat up, at least as far as this show is concerned. In the coaching carousel news, JMU hires Holy Cross head coach Bob Chesney as their next head coach. Don't know a lot about him. I know he's had a pretty good run here these last few years at Holy Cross. I know he was a head coach at some smaller schools, I think 2 schools prior to Holy Cross. And so fits the mold for JMU, and I'm sure he'll plug right in and continue their success on the football side of things. Memphis defensive coordinator headed to Mississippi State. That's another one in the carousel news. So who will Memphis bring in as their next defensive coordinator? That's a very critical hire for Ryan Silverfield to make. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then in portal news, man, I'm not one of these like portal tracker guys. I just kind of see it as it comes through. And if a big name hops in there, I'll usually talk about it here on the show. But the main thing I saw was another UNT, I think, skill guy jumped in the portal. So UNT is taking a hit. And this is the second consecutive offseason or spring where their team has taken a very significant hit. So talked about this yesterday, how to build a G5 in today's landscape. UNT is one of those situations, man, where they've got to be careful they don't just become the minor league for Power 5 programs. And I'm not 100% sure what that looks like for them in order to do that, but it's unfortunate because I think they had a chance to be pretty competitive next year had they been able to keep this group together. But it also shows, when you catch lightning in the bottle, you've got to capitalize on it. And unfortunately, North Texas's defense just for majority of the season was horrible. And then you had some guys come on like Chandler Rogers, didn't even start the season as the starting quarterback. So there's just some of those things but when you get that lightning in a bottle, you've got to capitalize. All right, so there's your hoops carousel portal update for today. And then let's get to the main news, okay? Mike Aresco, he's retiring. First off, congratulations, Commissioner Aresco. I can't think of someone who's advocated more for the group of 5, even though he hates that term. I can't think of someone who's fought harder for the American Conference and really all of the conferences in this group to have a seat at the table. Even the whole 6-6 model, like Mike Aresco was very critical in bringing that into the fold when it was first sort of agreed upon that the CFP would be expanded. And whether you love him or hate him, whether you agree with his decisions, disagree with his decisions, like you just can't deny that he's been a strong advocate for the underdog conferences in college football. And it's a tough loss because I'm going to talk more about it in a second, but whoever you hire, like you would like to have that same type of dog in them. Like Mike Aresco, man, he's got that fighter mindset in him. And look, whether you think it's corny, whether you think it's dumb, his whole P6 campaign, Power 6, I mean, he was convicted in that. He believed in that. He stood by that. He could care less with the naysayers and the people who, kind of made it out to be this cringe thing. No, he stood by it and he fought for it. And, I respect people that have something they stand for and they fight for it. And that's what Commissioner Aresco did. Now, unfortunately, he was kind of a victim of his own success. And what do I mean by that is he built certain teams up so much that then he starts losing them. He built the American Conference so much, like it was never quite the power level, but it was head and shoulders above the rest of the other conferences in this group. And he built it up so much so that ended up losing teams to power conferences when realignment struck. And, still now as realignment continues to run its course, the first conference teams rumored to be looking towards are the American Conference. Unless, of course, we're talking the whole PAC situation. That's a little bit different with the Mountain West and how that might play out. But I guess what I'm curious to know from you that's watching or listening, what do you think Mike Aresco's legacy will be and should be? I get it. There's people disappointed in the fact that he chose to raid the Conference USA to replace what he lost in Central Florida, Houston, and Cincy. Now, I'm still of the mind that you just have to give it time. Now, with him not being the one in leadership, when I talked to him personally one-on-one and asked him about what goes into that process of joining the American Conference, and he's like, we don't force anything, but we do expect a level of commitment, a level of investment. I don't know if any of you have seen today, but Army has raised, I think, $50 million to put into stadium renovations. I find that no coincidence that Army is suddenly rallying up those funds to invest in their football program shortly after committing to join the American Conference. Like, to me, that's part of the Mike Aresco effect, is he gets he gets universities and institutions to invest in their athletic programs as a part of joining the conference. Now, where that comes back to bite you is those programs invest so much and get built up so much that now the big boys want to poach them. And I think just this divide that's continuing to happen between the Power Five and Group of Five, I think he's just like, okay, I've fought as much as I can fight. I've advocated as much as I can advocate. And he's in his 70s. I don't know if y'all remember, but back when all the realignment stuff was happening initially, like, I was talking about that, when it was like, okay, could this be like I was thinking maybe this would be like his final swan song of trying to get that Power 5 status by merging with the 4 remaining PAC schools. This was before the ACC came back into the fold with the lobbying of the politicians and all that. And then, 2 of them go to the ACC, and shortly after that, he announces the American's not going to pursue westward expansion. And I get it. Look, if you want to disagree with him not pursuing westward expansion, you want to disagree with some of his universities that he targeted for expanding the last cycle, and you disagree with the philosophy of, choosing markets over programs, right? Like, one of the big things right now that's just sports irony is the fact that Liberty, a team that was passed up by the American, joins the Conference USA, and in year 1 in the Conference USA, they're the representative in the New Year's Six, giving the Conference USA its first ever New Year's Six bid after the American Conference just raided the Conference USA for expansion. So not only do they get their first bid, but they ended a 6-year run of the American Conference getting that bid. So, touch of irony, and I get it. If those who disagree with how he's chosen to build the conference, as I've said before, I do think that the part that makes sense, if you pay attention to realignment, the ones that survive are the ones that have ironclad media deals. And I think the thought process was basically, look, if we want to continue to have an ironclad quality media deal, we need to make sure that we're in markets that are appealing to the networks. And obviously he had strong relationship with CBS from his prior time, but then here recently he has a really good relationship with ESPN. I wonder how's that going to impact things, So those are just some of my thoughts. I think, another positive thing that he's done for the American Conference is, again, say what you want about him, but the AAC, even in a down year, still is in the middle of the top premier media agreement amongst all the G5 conferences. It's the most revenue generating, and based off what we looked at over the course of the year, it got most of the linear exposure as well. I don't know how important linear exposure is going to be as we continue to move into the era that we're in, where it's very much a streaming era. I think what we're going to have to start paying more attention to is, what is the quality of the streaming product that is presented? I feel like ESPN Plus, it's kind of hit or miss. I feel like there's some games I've watched on ESPN Plus and I feel like I'm watching it on ABC. And then there's other ones where I feel like I'm watching a high school stream, right? And so I think what we got to start looking at too is, what is the quality of product of the streaming? Anyways, not to go all into that, but yeah. So, love him or hate him, I think it is a loss for Group of Five football. I think he was a strong advocate. Whether you hate him or love him, agree with him, disagree with him, but let me know your thoughts. What do you think his legacy would be or will be? What should it be? And then what direction does the AAC go for its next leader? My first thought, and I cannot find the current finances, but I'm making a call. If I'm the board of directors for the American Conference, I'm testing the waters on Gloria Nevarez with the Mountain West. Now, she might have her sights set on something with the Pac, but I know Oresco was making $2.2 million in his role as the AAC commissioner. I don't know what Nevarez, I could not find it. The last salary I could find for Nevarez was like, I think $300K, but that was when she was with the West Coast Conference. Obviously, she got a significant boost, I would imagine, to be the commissioner of the Mountain West. But, I mean, is she pulling $2.2 million? You know, does the AAC have the funds to go get someone like that? Because I like the way she thinks. I like how she runs that conference. Obviously, Mountain West fans who may be watching this would not like that, but that would be my first call as the AAC. They'll probably promote from within. You know, I just think it's got to be somebody that's hungry. I think it's got to be someone that has, you know, a good foresight and a good pulse of the direction things are going. Because in my opinion, I feel like right now the AAC needs to take the Big 12 approach, which is we're open for business. Like, let's go get a VCU on basketball. Let's kick the tires on Dayton for basketball. Let's look at, you know, who are some other teams, some premier G5 teams that we can offer a better payout to and long-term security to and more exposure to, and like, let's go get them. And I would even be okay, you know, I know it's a little bit weird now, but of seeing how this thing plays out with the Mountain West and then trying to build a westward arm of this conference, even if it's with the Mountain West leftovers, assuming some of the top tier ones get poached by the Pac-2. Again, there's still a lot to be determined there, but that's just my thought right now. I feel like to survive in this landscape, there's a strength in numbers game. And I think if you can, you know, I look at what Brett Yormark has done with the Big 12. He lost his heart and soul as far as revenue is concerned. And he said, okay, we're going to double down on building the strongest basketball brand in America. And he went out and brought in teams like Houston, right? Arizona. And I don't have it all in front of me. You know, there's rumors with Gonzaga and all that. I mean, like, he's made that a priority. Why not do the same thing if you're the American Conference for mid-major basketball? You've already got the premier mid-major, one of the premier mid-major brands in all of college. And when I say mid-major conference brands in Memphis. Now you've got FAU on the come up. You've got some other teams in the conference that I think have a lot of potential to be strong mid-majors, but let's go try to get some other ones, in my opinion. So anyways, whoever it is, I feel like needs to have a like attack, to quote Coach Andy Kennedy at UAB, mindset as it pertains to this conference. Because if the conference is going to survive, there's got to be, I feel like, a national footprint, and there is a strength in numbers. So let me know your thoughts on Commissioner Oresco. Who should they be looking at to replace him, and what should the mentality be moving forward? And with that being said, that's it for me today. Thank you for watching another episode or listening to another episode of the College Underdogs podcast. I didn't say this at the top of the show, but if you're still hanging with me, please hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notifications. If you're listening on a streaming platform, please leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. And that's it for me, Trey Smith, signing off.